You. All right, what up, what up? Just want to say, to anybody, any first time comers, um, welcome. And then the people that are coming back, y'all know, welcome back. But I'm gonna dive into this and we're gonna get it going just immediately. Let's just get it popping. So the other day I'm at work and my work could involve a lot of stress if you let it. But what people tend to notice, especially with me, is that the stress that sets on other people doesn't really set on me, doesn't really set the same way, you know? And people start to wonder, about the outside things, maybe when I go home, things are really nice at home. That's what leads to less stress, which that could be the case. But we're looking for the primary reason why I have this state of mind while I'm at work. So you might say, oh, maybe they looking at me like, yo, maybe his pockets is fat. Whenever things fall on his lap, we notice he has, zero cares in the world. Not that there's no care towards the actual thing, but the idea behind what's happening, how we're gonna produce the solution. A lot of people get bent out of shape, don't know what direction to turn in. And I understand how to handle those things in a different way. So what I do, is I usually rely on the mind, right? And what I mean by that is I actually look at the situation overall, you know what I mean? You're looking at the situation, what's happening, and you gain an understanding that the reason why it is the way that it is because of something that you have conjured up. The fact that you have conjured that up, you can also change it. Now, let's say you don't even get to that point. Let's say nothing's going wrong, but you always cool, you always easy. That's another state that people started to wonder, like, yo, how come nothing really falls on this man's lap? At work, a lot of things fall on other people's laps all the time. Stressful situations, things they get into, and I happen to slide right through. Those situations, again, it's going to come through with the state of mind, the way that I'm thinking, the fact that I de-stress inside, and that's what leads to the results that everybody's seeing. It's not necessarily going to come back to something physical, because just because my pockets is fat, or just because my situation at the crib might be more stable than another man's, somebody has it more stable than me and more money than me, and they're not de-stressed. They're not handling the situation just like me. They're stressed, they're bent out of shape, they're over the top, So where is it really coming from? It's not the physical things. It's not the physical things. So at work, I'm trying to explain to my man, and I'm like, bro, you gotta think about what you could really actually change, and also change immediately. And that's the way you think. I said, as long as you change the way you think, you're gonna find that your experience is gonna change in the direction that you're thinking in. So what I'm trying to explain to him is the reason why I carry this smooth way of living, everything is always cool, because I believe the divine order is always in order. I notice that whenever I encounter situations that people might observe as stressful or a challenge, I tend to get right over it. It's nothing to me. It ends up being just one of the walks in life that my mind is putting me through in order for me to get to my goal. So the first thing I was telling my man is like, yo, listen, the number one idea you want to get behind this is that prayer life. All right? However you do it, you pray, you meditate. You know what I'm saying? You go in the lab, you go in the dark room, and you think about the thoughts that you want to perceive in your life. This is how you get to the next point. And what involves this action is going to take commitment. If you don't have the commitment, then that's where you're going to find excuses. All right. Only the uncommitted produces excuses. It's that simple. Only the uncommitted produces excuses. You'll find if ever you're in a situation and you could come out with any excuse in the book, you're going to find that that's also a situation that you're not committed to. You're not putting your all to the forefront. So the moment you dial that in and you have the commitment in play, you'll find that you can easily track your mind onto the right way of thinking. So what ends up happening after you now have committed to this way, this way of thinking where you want to think positive, 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 and you start to find that what's coming out of this positive way of thinking is a lot of negatives. A lot of people tend to run into this. So they run into situations where they're running into negative things, but they've felt or they feel like they've already changed their life and they're now revolving around or going down a positive path. Well, let me tell you something real fast, all right? Because this is something you got to train your mind to actually do and train your mind to actually think. In order for you to generate a full-on positive or what you identify as a positive life, in the beginning, when you identify what's positive, you also notice what's negative. The fact that you notice what's negative puts the negative in your mind. Let's say, for example, let's say you was the master thief, right? You always took things or whatever. You will always go to like your little corner stores and you little snatch a little bubble gum or something like that, a little bag of chips, whatever, whoop-de-whoop. So you notice that when you decide to change your life, that's something you don't want to do anymore. So you start to trace the steps of what's positive and what's negative. And you say to yourself, well, I know in my old life, I used to snatch up a little something, whatever I felt that I could get away with. But now I'm thinking this way. You just did it. You just brought back in that negative and you also brought in the positive, which is cool. But this is part of the process when somebody asks, why have I already changed my life or just changed my life and the way that I'm thinking and the way that I'm conducting myself? And I'm starting to notice these obstacles starting to come my way. It's the simple fact that you're actually observing the two. When you get to a point where you naturally move in that divine state of mind, you don't even see the negative. You just go straight. You already know what to do. You just go to the store, you buy what you need, and you skate out. That's it. You don't even think along the lines of what you used to do, could get away with, what you saw somebody do, what you heard on the news. These are things you block. You block those things in order to conjure up the thought of you getting in there. And the idea behind you getting in there is you taking your money, you giving it to somebody, which the idea behind giving is then receiving. So you getting what you want. So that's the train of thought. You giving and you receiving, you getting somebody to a better state. You also in a better state. You feeling good. That's the train of thought you want to continue rolling with. Not what you did in the past, not what you saw somebody get away with, not what you heard somebody get away with, not what you saw on the news. None of that should come back to your train of thought after you've followed a more positive way of thinking and acting continuously on a daily basis. It's a training. It's not something that you just going to dive into immediately and get a hold of it the way that some people might think. All right. So you got to take the time and be committed. Remember, the uncommitted produces excuses. So you don't have anything on the table that's going to block you from getting to that goal. All right. Nothing to do it. So you're going to get to what you want as long as you're committed to doing it. You're going to find that your life will change. You'll deal with less stressful moments, situations to where you narrow it down to none. You know what I mean? When you learn to take control of your life and how it's working and things like that, you'll learn that it's coming from up here. The things that you block out will open you up to the things that you want to come in. The negative things that you block out open you up to the things you want to come in, which are the positive. Believe it or not, you want the positive, but it's hard to run back on that train of thought or that way of thinking. Why? Because you've been fed the negatives continuously for your entire life. The idea behind that is I want you to turn on the television and at any point in time, tell me where and when the television is not trying to convince you on how to think, a certain way on how to think. Everything they deliver is trying to get your mind to go in a direction that they want it to go in. You need to pull back and take that control. Don't let them tell you what medicines is gonna do this, that, and the third for you and all of that. It's gonna come from here first, right? We all know somebody who's taking medicine and it don't work, right? It's not 100%. So don't let them convince you and make you feel and think that it is. Now it could be for you, it could work for you, right? I'm not going to deny that. What I'm looking at is the fact that it's still being controlled by here, whether it works for you or not. Because some people it does and some people it doesn't. And when you bring it to the table and ask, hey man, what's up with this guy? It don't work. And then what's up with this guy? It's working. You come to find out, well, that's just the way how his body is. They don't really have too much to really trace it back. But when you bring it back to the mind, it's always 100%. So get committed. You'll see that change will come in, slowly but surely, or as fast as you want it to go. That's in control of your mind and how well you are in line with the ways you want to think, what you want to come to you. Just keep in mind the lack, want, and limitation is what's on TV. All right? Every commercial you see displays some degree of lack, want, and limitation. When you watch the news, that's the same thing they deliver. Lack, want, and limitation. It's something that they push on people to create the dependence. All right? Leave that alone. Rely more on your way of thinking. Other day, somebody asked me, so if you have this way of thinking, how do you feel about the killer that's 2 doors down? Well, if I don't know about him, the only thing that would lead me to cross paths with anything that person associated with is if I think along those lines. If I'm not bringing that into my life through movies, news, these documentary things, if I'm not bringing that in, it's not going to entertain, okay? It's cool where I'm at. When I pull up to my grocery store, it's great. If there's somebody dangerous that's there, I don't see them, I don't feel them, I don't hear them, they not there. Or if they there, my state of mind, my conscious mind is only seeing the divine side of what they have going on. So the idea behind this is this, because I'm going off track a little bit. This guy who came to me and asked me, how do I, everything, I'm so cool and calm, this, that, and the third. And I'm telling them, the ideas behind the mind and stuff like that and the commitment, trying to get them up to speed, letting them know that, as you go through this process, you'll notice that, yes, there's some times and situations where you might notice that you go through those humps and bumps. You go through those times where it's not really making sense based on how you were taught, trained, whatever. You now have this different state of mind that as you change what you're doing, you're going to slowly see a change in your life. But you start to notice, you start to hit some negatives somewhere down the line. And you're not liking too much of what you see. Well, the idea behind it is the divine order is always in order. So the divine order is the work of God. It's the way of God, all right? It's the divine order. It's when everything is in perfect alignment, perfect. When you late for work, the divine order is always in order. Pull up to your workplace, to your job place, take all the negative ways of thinking behind being late. You say, oh, when I'm late, this happens. This person's mad at me. This thing can't be done. This thing, the more you run on that train of thought, is the more you'll go in that direction. Don't think like that. You could be 2 hours late. Y'all know you're supposed to be like 5 minutes late if you're gonna be late. It's what looks good. And then 15 is when it's starting to get alarming, you know? And then you start running up the numbers, and more the later you are, the worse it starts to seem. But it just seems that way from the outside. When you work with the inside, the divine order is always in order. I don't care how late you are, you're in perfect timing. You're in God's timing. Your timing is actually setting you up that way so you can get closer to your goal. I know you don't like this state and condition that you're currently in at the moment. It feels a little stressful, but you need to de-stress, let the heart rate come down, take your mind away from those other places. You got your mind at work, seeing people going crazy, saying, where's he at? Where's he at? What's going on? You got your mind at work. Bring your mind back to you. Bring the thoughts back to here, inside. Start telling yourself what you want people to do for you and what you need to have happen in order for you to rest and relax. So if you're getting a little bent out of shape because the operation of the system can't run because you're not there yet, get the thoughts in line that puts the situation where you get the needed time. You need some extra time, you get that needed time. So the other guy they're supposed to be waiting on, he happens to not be ready either. He actually had a wardrobe malfunction. So now he needs like an extra 10, 15 minutes. Mind you, you're running 10, 15 minutes behind. And you notice that it happens to line up just right. Everybody knows this. The more you run into a situation, such as being late, and the less you worry about it and get stressed out about it, the more you start to notice that when the arrival time comes, the divine order working in order, wherever you thought there was friction, you go right by. It goes real smooth. A lot smoother than what you actually even thought. I thought the whole job site was going to be upside down, and instead of that, you actually seeing it go just right. And just right is actually the way that you are thinking. As long as you think in the right direction, that's what you're going to actually end up with. That's the direction you're going to go in. So the divine order is always in order. I don't care what happens to you. You're actually going through everything you're experiencing to slowly get closer to your goal. All right. I know the in-between gets rocky and bumpy, but just like I said in my last video, if you don't want the rocky and bumpy before you get to your goal, what's up with that prayer life? Your prayer life is I know you anticipate, manifest, put it in your head for this point, the final destination, right? But the in-between, you got to think about and consider that too. Because the in-between for some people is just as important. Some people break down in the in-between and they never make it to the end. Or they get to the end, but they continue with those humps and bumps and trials and tribulations through life. And yeah, they're getting to the end because their mind is always going to get them to that end point. We all can kind of think about what we really want. But the in-between is what a lot of people gripe and complain about. And they don't realize what they recognize, they energize. So the gripes and complaints are only coming back because man's ensnared by his own words. You got to keep it in mind. It's going to turn on you in so many ways, shapes, and forms if you don't readjust your way of thinking and then control what you're saying. Because as a man thinks, so is he. So as you are thinking these thoughts, you start to become that. Think the positive thoughts and you start to become that. If you want to change things around you, you change things within yourself. Changing into a positive self helps to change the world slowly helps to change the world become a positive world. because it's you that's changing and making it that. Other people might have a different experience. I go to work all the time and people tell me how crazy of a world it is. Oh, the world crazy right now, man. They talk all this stuff about how the world is this, that, and the third. And then they ask me if I checked out the news, and I tell them, nah. So whatever crazy world they have an idea of, that's not what I see when I pull up to my son's school. That's not what I see when I come to the crib. That's not what I see when I go to the grocery store. That's not what I see at any point in my life, because I don't think like that. I don't allow those thoughts to actually come in, and that's not what actually is entertained. All right? I'm going to get up off this one. Y'all know what it is. Only the uncommitted produces excuses, all right? The divine order is always in order. Doesn't matter what you go through, trials and tribulations, right? If you want the in-between to change, what up with that prayer life though? If you pray more, meditate, whatever you want to call it, you produce a smooth in-between. You'll get a smooth in between and you'll achieve your end result. I'm going to get up off this one. I don't want to make it too long. Y'all know what it is. I'm out.